Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Power Women in Insurance podcast, where we talk to people all over the country, all over the industry, in every single area about what they do, how they can do it better, and how they can set their soul on fire for this industry. We are excited because we are wrapping up our financial series this week, and we have been talking with Carey Wallace and her team. We've been talking with Colby Allen over at Agency Focus. We've talked about so many good, deep conversations about how to be really, really strong as a producer, as working with commissions. We've talked about profit and loss. We've talked about balance sheets. We've talked about achieving our dreams by financial goals through the insurance industry. And today we're going to cap it off with an amazing team of people, some of my favorite people ever, Chris Paradiso, Carey Wallace, Aaron Stocks, and I know we are missing Mitch Hunt, which breaks my heart, but I love Mitch. And we are talking to them about how they are helping agencies to be able to break that barrier of being able to bring down some of the barriers of financial conversations in a business and in an agency. So we are excited to have y'all on the podcast today. Welcome to the Power Women in Insurance podcast, y'all.
Thank you, Teresa.
Well, I am excited, and I know I mentioned this when we first got started, and the listeners for the podcast know this very well. When I started off 21 years ago, literally today is March 11th, March 13th is our 21st anniversary in business. I had been a stay-at-home mom for 9 years. I didn't even have an insurance license when I signed on with my cluster. I don't know how that even happened or how that was legal, but it was. And so therefore we started, and I thought in my mind, I was there to facilitate this agency for my dad to start it, right? He had been with Allstate. We were coming out of the mold crisis in Texas, and we didn't have a lot of markets. So I started it. It was during Mom's Day Out hours. For me, it was a side thing. It was like taking care of my dad. But over the course of the last 21 years, my life has been able to grow within this industry. And I love this industry. I've raised my children with Netflix videos being passed back and forth. I ended up with electric blankets underneath my desk and DVD players. And we had juice boxes and turtles and hamsters in the back room. My children have grown up in this industry. And I know that there are so many other people, and I hear this all the time about family-owned agencies, about agencies that really get in there. But yet whenever they reach a certain point, I know that there's a challenge because a lot of families, a lot of businesses have a hard time talking about money. So that's why we kind of came into this. And I know when I talked to Colby, he was talking about how a lot of times we have to kind of get over our own stuff, our own personal stuff that we have on a very personal level to be able to really build a successful business financially. So I'm excited to talk to y'all today because you're helping agency owners to really bridge that gap and be able to achieve their dreams in that. So I'd love to hear how this really came about.
So the interesting aspect in how we came together was really a start of over 4 years ago when my agency did it in-house, and we had a little issue, and we had to remove somebody, and we brought in an outside firm. What ended up happening was that outside firm, unfortunately, actually made a bigger mess of things. And I was very fortunate to know somebody in the industry who had a great relationship with Aaron at PFS. And it started 4 years ago with basically hiccups that have taken place in my agency. And the one thing I didn't want to do is go back to doing it in-house because I didn't want to be caught in the same situation.
Right.
So for the past 4.5 years, I've had my books done on time, commissions reconciled on time, paying the government exactly what's owed on time based on real numbers. And what ended up happening was Aaron called me last year after long conversations of why our industry needed it so bad. We needed commission reconcile because most agencies are not doing it, even though they don't want to admit it, unfortunately. Number two, bookkeeping, because not every agency wants to do it in-house, and an accountant firm. So that all came together all within Agency Point. And it's really to benefit agents. Less expensive to do it this way, along with ease of use. So we were fortunate to come together. I had great relationships with Carey and Nick Hunt and said, hey, let's do this together along with Aaron Stocks and PFS. So Agency Point came together, and it's powered by PFS.
I love that. I love that. Now, how have you seen insurance agents approach this conversation with y'all? Because sometimes money can be, and we kind of alluded to it earlier, money is a very personal thing, and we spend money based on maybe how we were raised or our personal feelings, right? I think when you show somebody your books, you're kind of showing them your very private stuff, you know. I mean, I know, like, because I've worked with Carey before, she's helped me with budgeting and some other things, and I'm like, oh, is she gonna like me? You know, I'm like, oh my gosh, is she gonna like go, oh my goodness, Teresa's so screwed up, and we're gonna see each other at a conference, and she's gonna duck and she's gonna run the other direction. Because I think sometimes we all feel like we're kind of showing our our private business here. How do you find that insurance agencies can really approach this conversation in a really healthy way?
I think I'm going to take that one, if that's okay.
I think you should.
Yeah. So here's the reality. Everyone has stuff. Everyone has stuff. And I think you have to do business with people you know, like, and trust, because that is not my reaction ever to someone that has stuff. The reality is, if you came to me and said, Carey, I want you to find the best coverage for a client, and you asked me insurance advice, I would not know what I was doing. I know enough to be dangerous when it comes to insurance, right? Because I surround myself with insurance agents. Why should I expect insurance agents to know everything about accounting or finance or money management? Their skill set is people, insurance, and minimizing their risk. And you have to surround yourself with people that have other skill sets. So it's never a shameful thing. It's actually, it's difficult to open up the books and show someone, but you also need to be met with someone that's going to say, here are the areas that you're doing well, and here are the areas of opportunity, and possibly some changes that can position you better so you can make better decisions as a business owner. That's the reality. It's not about judgment. It's all about empowering that person to be able to do what they're good at and make them as successful as they can possibly be. Yeah.
I love that. Because I think once, and we were talking a little bit before, when I met my husband, he was like, so, how does your business doing? He has his MBA, and he's like, so, how are your spreadsheets? And I was like, what do you talk about? And he was like, yeah, like, what is your profit and loss? And I was like, what's that? And I've been in business like 10 years, and he was like, no, you don't know what these things are. And I was like, oh, well, that's what I have a CPA for. And he was like, no, that's not the point. And I had a lot of learning to do. And I think that, when he kind of sat me down, and I had a couple of years worth of back taxes I had to file. And when I finally kind of got over that hump, it was a relief. It was honestly a joy at that point that I could look at my books, because I actually knew a little bit of what was going on. It wasn't this big burden as much. And I've had to remind myself, whenever I've made big leaps in my personal development with the business as a business owner, that I have to step over that fear. I have to step over that personal conversation that I have with myself in my own head to be better tomorrow than I am today. And then unless I do that, I will not ever be the business owner that I want to be unless I step over that fear. So I love the fact that y'all are putting this together to be able to help people to really see the truth of where their agency is, where their commissions are, where their team is as well, and pay their team fairly, and pay their team. And, like we mentioned, commissions, being able to really get in there and be able to know exactly what's going on with your agency.
Reconciling commissions is probably one of the biggest things that is not being done by agents that are very well-known agents. And remember, when you don't reconcile commissions, that means the person or producer or CSR in-house person, whoever's selling, is not getting their fair amount, because when cars are added, or if cars are taken off, then the agency owner isn't being paid properly. So reconciling commissions is an absolute must. And Aaron and Carey can attest, they had found just about $68,000 of unpaid commissions. And that
Wow.
happens because, remember, carriers make mistakes, technology breaks, things happen. I'm not saying intentionally, but things happen. And are we being paid accurately? And that's, you're not going to know that without, having your commissions reconciled.
So that's a really
Teresa,
great
I'm
question. How many agency owners or people that run the finances of an agency actually look at those numbers? I mean, how many actually do you think in the industry? And I know that's, there's not any big study on it or anything like that, but what are y'all generally seeing out there? That do many people look at their commissions, reconcile their commissions every month?
Aaron, how many people have come to you in the 100+ agencies you're working with have come to you that weren't reconciling before? What do you think percentage-wise?
Definitely the majority don't reconcile. And the reason is because it's the resources and time it takes. So they're always used to being a small agency where they weren't really, looking to reconcile commissions. They weren't paying producers commissions, or if they were, they had some like shorthand way of doing it. So to get them from going from the mindset of, okay, I'm never going to reconcile commissions because the time or resources it takes to, I need to do this right every month is a big step. But once they start doing it, it opens up the possibility of paying producers however they would like, right? They could really change it up and pay them how they would like to because they're not restricted with the reports they have. But also, I mean, reconciling commissions is not just paying the producers out, it's also verifying that the carriers are paying you. It's like in Chris's case, he was reconciling for the most part his commissions to pay his producers. However, he wasn't reconciling to make sure that the carriers were paying him. So his is a abnormally large case where there was a large amount of money left on the table because he wasn't doing that extra step. But doing both steps is really important, especially if you're trying to go from like a small family agency and hiring producers that aren't, mom or dad or brother or sister. You do need to really reconcile your commissions the correct way.
I think what Aaron said is really important, Teresa. I was in an agency last week and there were producers asking me, how do I verify that I'm being paid correctly by the reports that are being given to me by the internal person doing it? And
Yeah.
what's crazy is you have revenue generating people asking, how can I reconcile to be sure I'm being paid appropriately? Which means, guess what? They're not selling. So having confidence in the information that you have is so critically important. And it's not just the owner, it's not just the operations person, it's everyone within the organization needs to have confidence that this is being done correctly. The power in someone like me that looks at agencies is I get to see many agencies, right? Same thing with Aaron. He gets to see many agencies. We're not looking at one or two agencies a year. Last year we served over 250 agencies in agency focus. Aaron, I know you're over several hundred agencies. There's power in looking at this multiple times and seeing the commonality that occurs and being able to do it appropriately across the board versus someone inside your agency might have only ever seen your agency. And
Oh,
that
that's
is
a really good
that's a
point.
tricky thing, right?
But that's huge. That's huge. And I totally get that, because if you hire somebody, and Chris, tell me if I'm wrong, right? You got to teach them how to do it, right? And if we have never done it ourselves, and if it's something, maybe there's a hole in our agency of something we're not doing or something we haven't done, how do we know that we need to be doing it to be able to make sure that we do it, and or how do we do it right? Right. And I think, like you said, we know insurance, but I'm not an accountant. I don't know all the ins and the outs of all the numbers, right? And so I think having, like you said, somebody who knows that back end, somebody who has that financial background, and somebody who's seen hundreds of agencies, I think just the knowledge alone that would be able to give would be so huge for an agency owner.
I think the biggest thing, Teresa, and why we're here talking about this is if I could tell you how many people have had private conversations who, as you said, you had to face the tune when you didn't file for a couple of years, right? That's hard to say that.
Yeah.
These people called me and specifically saying, hey, can I have a private conversation with you? And then I hate to also say this, a lot of times they say, hey, I hope you don't think less of me with what I'm about to ask you.
Yep.
And I'm like, dude, it's please, we need help. Isn't that what we're supposed to do, is help a fellow agent? Agents are supposed to help other agents. And when with Carey and Mick and Aaron, our goal obviously is to be profitable, but our goal is how do we leave the industry better? I can't tell you how many people have personally called me and said privately they need help and they had no idea where to start. And I think it starts with looking in the mirror. What did you say? I had to look in the mirror and face the tune. I think a lot of us have to, but as long as Carey said, somebody that they can trust to call. I know when it comes to fractional CFO, I know I can call Carey. Carey's a part of this, but I also know that she works on my stuff. And I, just as Aaron does, I know the confidence I have and also the trust and privacy that the whole world's not going to know.
Yeah.
And I think people are embarrassed, and they shouldn't be, but they are.
Well, I mean, I think we need to look at business ownership. You have a lot of hats, right? You have a lot of different hats. And I think that we need to understand, and I think we need to also be very, very real with ourselves that we don't know everything in the world. I think when we get to a certain point in life and or leadership, we somehow almost retract backwards almost to maturity because of the concept that we don't want to show our stuff that stinks. And we don't want to admit that stuff might stink, right? Or that we need help, because I think we try to keep up this image of the fact that we have it all together and we don't. And I think we need to be better at asking for help. I think we need to be better at saying, like we said earlier, I know insurance. I don't necessarily know all the financials. And even when, like, I have a bookkeeper, but even my bookkeeper, like the whole premiums account, right? That just blows their mind. And I mean, I've been pushing and pulling with them for the last 3 years since I've been using them. And I'm like, well, aren't you guys the ones who are supposed to know this? We need to hire people that are smarter than us, that know more, that are more experienced than us, so that we can achieve those goals. One of the conversations we had in this financial podcast series is knowing where you want to go, right? How do you build a business for the life that you want if you can't know where you're going and admit that we need help to get there? And I think it's important to do that too in front of our team, because we need our team to be able to say, hey, if they don't know something, they either need to get the information, they need to learn it, and or maybe we need to hire somebody for that division that knows something that we can help to be able to help all of them rise, right? I think it's so important to have those conversations. And I also think it's so important to mentor other people into those conversations. I mean,
Great.
Aaron, whenever you work with people, and I mean, insurance is, I'm not going to sit here and say insurance is a different type of a world, but why did you choose to go into insurance? Because yeah, I know on the podcast, right? One of the things we start off with is, how did you get where you are? Why are you in the insurance industry? And most people start with, oh, I never thought I'd ever be in the insurance industry. That was just not where I thought I'd be when I was, in high school or when I was thinking about careers. So why are you here to help insurance agents, and what is your passion around that?
I never thought I'd be in the insurance industry. No. Yeah, so when I first got started in accounting, insurance was just one of the categories I happened to fall into. And this was around when Hawkstop was becoming bigger, and people were using QuickBooks and Hawkstop compared to the other AMSs that had their own general ledgers in them. So as we were picking up some insurance clients, we realized that there was a big need in this space. So instead of just treating it like any other industry where we just say that we do it, but we never really mastered it, we really spent the time to understand the industry and master it. Because if you're using someone in-house or an accounting firm that doesn't have insurance experience, there's a big difference. They don't know the words that you guys use. They don't know how to do the accounting. Like you said, one of the hardest concepts to grasp is the premium trust account, right?
Yeah.
What are these fiduciary funds coming in and out of my account? And how do I know the difference if they're non-fiduciary fees or commissions, right? How do I split those up? One of the most common things we run into, which is mind-boggling to me, and so if you're listening to this and your accounting is set up this way, please call us. It's they have 2 QuickBooks files or 2 accounting files, one for their trust account and one for all the rest of the operating accounts. And I always ask, well, why'd you set up 2 that way? And someone's be like, oh, that's just how we were told to set it up, or that's how it was set up initially. We've always had it that way. So, so how I got involved was just by luck. I fell into the industry, but I've really enjoyed and loved it. And meeting people like Carey and Chris has really, piqued my interest of how do we grow this further in the insurance space, because I think it's one of the industry that's really underserviced for accounting.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I love that. I love it. And what is the most common challenge that you find that insurance agents have with getting to start working with y'all? As far as Aaron, what do you generally see as far as like the most common challenges when you take over all of this? Because I mean, with the time involved, is it the fact that they have to go find all their numbers? Do they even know where they are? I mean, what do you guys usually find? What do you usually find is one of your biggest challenges?
I think that for insurance agencies that it's really tough for them to first like accept that their books haven't been good. They've done it like this for the last 10 years.
Yep.
So the biggest challenge is, getting them to share where they're actually at and to share their accounting. Because when we go in and do a proposal for a client, we take a look at their books and records for the last several years and their tax returns and compare them together, right? So to get the agency to open up about that and the agency owner to be like, okay, I trust Aaron with this amount of records in order to provide a proposal. After they share those records with us and we go through our process, then it's easy. They understand where we're coming from and that we know what they're doing. But getting them to open up and share the amount of information that we need to provide a proper proposal is tough.
What is a general time commitment? Because I mean, you have to be able to have a yin and a yang, right? You have to be able to have that conversation. How much time should an agency owner expect to be able to invest in this? Because I think if it's not just like I always say, I want to go to the gym and within 10 minutes I want to be skinny, right? I mean, it's the same thing, right? I might hire you within 10 minutes. I want you to have my whole financial, future of my agency figured out and totally clean. That's not going to happen. What do you need as an agency owner for me to invest back in the process for y'all so that way I'm prepared to bring my very best to the table?
Upfront is not a lot of time commitment. We really just need an initial 30-minute Zoom to discuss your agency. Most agencies are very similar, so just getting most of the information from you verbally is easy. Then we ask that you give us access to QuickBooks and your tax returns or whatever AMS you're using if it has its own GL. So that doesn't take too much time, 5-10 minutes to email us the tax returns and to get us access to the AMS or QuickBooks file that you're using. We spend about 3 to 5 hours going through all of that on our own, and then we hop on our Zoom to show you our findings, which is about 30 minutes. So really you need about an hour of time commitment, and we can show you what we're going to do going forward. From there, we have a plan. We're going to say, hey, we need to clean up the last year. Hey, we should just start in the current year. And you have options, right? So not every agency owner wants to go back several years like Chris Paradiso did, but he's Chris Paradiso who likes things done extremely detailed. So we might be like, hey, let's just start in January of 2024 so we don't have to go back that far. Well, now the time commitment is not very long. Whatever happened in the past is the past, and we'll just do it correctly going forward. So everyone's different, and that time commitment can be rather low if you want to just start off correctly going forward.
I love it. I love it. Carey, what type of an impact as you are doing the fractional CFO work, right, with other agencies, what impact would being able to really be able to utilize a service like this be able to make on an agency that is trying to grow, right? I know there's a lot of agencies out there that have big dreams. Maybe we're doing acquisitions, right? Maybe we are hiring team members. We are really building in a certain direction. And as an agency would be able to use a service like that to be able to come to the table with the CFO type service, what type of an impact would that have on the future of an agency?
So I'm going to take that a couple different ways. Number one, if an agency can't count on their financials to make decisions, they're not going to make decisions. So for instance, you can't see a trend and you don't know where you stand compared to the industry benchmark. You don't even know that you should be making a decision. So having financials that are well put together and actually tells you a story about your agency is far more impactful for someone that's not running financials at all. So I think there's a missed opportunity to, number one, know what you're looking for, know what decisions it should drive you for, and be able to look for those stories. Because in order to grow, you have to invest in your agency. And you don't know if you have the ability to invest unless you're actually taking a look and saying, listen, the average agency spends 48% of their revenue on payroll. I'm spending 70%. Maybe I need to take a look at that and figure that out. So by, first of all, organizing your financials in a way that that story is even something you're aware of, gets you in the position that you can make decisions. The second part is opportunity costs. Like, the number one person that does financials in an agency is the owner or the owner's wife. And so let's just think
Okay.
about this, right? Let's just think about it, right? So if you're an owner and you grow your agency and you're spending time doing something you've never been trained in, you don't really understand, but because it's sensitive, you're the one that's doing it. There's an opportunity cost of you doing it. And at some point, you got to let go of that, have it done so you can be the review, not the person actually doing the work. So I think there's this incredible opportunity cost for those that don't have the insight and don't spend their time wisely where their highest and best is to grow their agency. And I can see it making a huge impact also for agencies that are looking to eventually sell. So if you go to a potential buyer with financials that don't tell the story, that are not clean, it's kind of like selling your house without remodeling your kitchen or your bathrooms. They're going to discount it because we are uncertain what this actual agency is doing. And you'll leave money on the table because you don't know to present yourself in the appropriate way, to position yourself well in that. So it's not just selling, but it certainly makes a huge impact if you're ever contemplating selling.
Yeah, well, and I think too, if you do have a perpetuation plan, right? Like maybe somebody even in your agency who's going to take over, or
That's right.
if you want to be able to hand it off to a successor, right? We don't want to hand off a hot mess. I mean, they're going to need to be in the middle of it too, right? And then, I like my daughter's in the business, right? If she ever
Mhm.
chooses to be able to buy me out, if she does that, then the conversation is, I don't want to leave her with a hot mess that she needs to be able to go back and and be able to fix, right? I want her to be able to run with it, and I want her to be able to excel with it, and I want her to be able to take it to another level beyond where I have it. And for me to leave it in turmoil and angst is not exactly the way that we want to be able to do that, whether or not we're selling or whether or not we have somebody being able to come up behind us.
To
Chris,
be
I'm sorry.
honest with you, Teresa, an internal is even more important to have your financials sound, because that internal profitability will impact what that sales price can be. I mean, it impacts both sales, but in an internal, that's all you have is that internal profitability. There's no synergy between two agencies coming together. So if you don't know what your profitability is, you might actually transition ownership to the next generation at a far lower discount than you need to, because you just didn't have the right financial advice.
On the flip end, Teresa, she talked about you selling as an agency selling, but when you're purchasing, the flip end of it, which I've had, not me specifically, but somebody reached out to me and said, hey, they couldn't get a loan because
Yeah.
the story wasn't accurate. So
Yeah.
when Carey talks about the story, that story doesn't just if you sell and you lose money, but it could stop you from purchasing. It's probably not going to stop you if you're paying 100, 200, 300. It's a small loan. If you go for $2, $3, $4, $5 million loan because you're buying a bigger agency, if that story doesn't align, the banks, especially if you're going to banks who really know and understand the agency world,
Right.
that story doesn't make sense, you're not getting that loan.
That's very interesting. I love how you guys are really painting that picture. So, Chris, I can also see how this would really help with the integrity with your team as well, because like you're mentioning, if you add or subtract vehicles, right? If you make changes, to be able to have somebody like this that is so on your side, even a third party, right? Not necessarily inside your agency. I'm sure your team feels much safer with their commissions and everything being attributed from an outside source, from an outside company, whatever. But also at the same point, they feel like it's being done the right way, and that it's being done, like Carey was saying, the way that they know that they're being done the correct way. And I'm sure it also helps to be able to attract better team members.
Not just that, and when there's a mistake, which there was a mistake, and it really wasn't the mistake of agency point, it was the mistake prior to agency point taking over. Well, I only went back so far. Recently, last month, there was an excess of about 17,000 of commissions paid to an outside producer who had been working for about a year with Agency Point. So he was directly working with the commissions people, with Aaron's team. And he went, after it was done, he's like, I'm just so thankful that you were so open and transparent that you let me work with them to get it. I knew I wasn't paid on this, and they knew it. They just needed to straighten it out. And it's a trust thing, right? So they know I'm not, when there's mistakes, they know I'm not intentionally trying to screw them. Having that third party has been life altering for me. I would never go back to doing it in-house ever.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, you know, I think as we grow and in this industry with the hard market and all these other things, it's important to know your numbers. It's important to know where you're going. It's important because in order for us to hire, in order for us to be able to grow the business in the direction we need to invest in software, to be able to invest in people, to be able to invest in locations, to be able to invest in all of these different things. I think it's really important that we have to have those accurate numbers, because otherwise we can't invest in the future. We can't push forward, right? And I know that that's a really, really big part of everything. Where do you see the perfect, at what point? Because like Carey was talking about earlier, right? There's a lot of agencies out there that the wives may be doing the books or the agency owners doing the books. And I think sometimes as we're smaller agencies learning and we're growing and we're bringing in team members, right? I think we've got so many plates spinning and plates spinning and plates spinning. Sometimes being able to do it all by ourselves is maybe a really good thing to some degree as you're getting started, because you need your hands on the numbers. You need your hands knowing what's going on. But at the same point, as we grow, where is going to be that sweet spot for agencies to really embrace y'all's services? And I'm sure everybody across the board from day one could be able to benefit from it, especially the knowledge and the understanding, because we want to start off on the right note, right? We don't want to have to go back and go fix reinvent the wheel, 10 years in. But what is kind of your sweet spot agency that y'all are really seeing is going to be just really the type of agency that really can benefit from this service?
Carey, I think you say it the best. Why don't you give us that one?
Yeah, so I think it's an agency that's really focused on growth. They've definitely hit the ceiling. There's a lot of agencies that hit a ceiling where, listen, in order to get to the next level, I've got to redefine what I'm doing.
Mhm.
That typically happens somewhere around 750 in revenue or above. That's typically, 83% of independent insurance agencies are 1.25 million and below. And lots of them stall around the 500, 750 range, simply because they just can't get to the next level. I don't want that number to deter someone. If you are trying to grow and you're thinking about, how do I work on my business, not in my business, you are the right person that is going to make the investment in order to catapult your agency forward.
I love that. I love that. So it is really about the agency that's looking to grow. It is about that
That's right.
agency that's really has the vision for moving forward to be able to achieve where it is that we want to be able to go. And and I love that, because agencies that really just, I think agencies, one of my biggest focuses on my agency is that I want to make sure that my team is happy. I want to make sure that we're growing together. I want to make sure we have a good culture. If we don't have a good culture, I don't care how much money I'm making, it's never going to be enough, in my opinion. But that's me. Other people are very much different. You're right. They want that number. They want that income. They want that. And I do too, but I want to do it in a way that I'm honoring my team. And I think that we have to focus on the finances, because that makes a happy team. We have to understand the synergy of honoring them and of being able to be safe emotionally, personally. Because I think in this hard market, sometimes not knowing what's going on, and if we don't know that our commissions are being paid the right way, if we don't know that we're paying our people what they need to be paid, and or making sure that those numbers work out the way they do, I think that helps to create a lot of that uncertainty in business ownership. And we need that security. We need to step over, like we talked about in the beginning, that fear, so that we can achieve that security. But we're not going to achieve it unless we step over our fear to be able to get there. And I love that you guys have put this together, because I think it's a huge hole in our industry. And I think it's going to do wonderful things to be able to help those agency owners out there that are really, really looking for growth and long-term sustainability for their agency.
So health checkup is really what it is. It's that consistently having that health checkup, which I made a major mistake early on in my years. So hopefully I can assist others in not making that mistake. And if I had only done it sooner, I would have been able to really understand, if you want to grow, there's certain aspects of growth that you have to understand financially. And if you don't understand them financially, it's always going to stunt your growth. So
Yeah.
the healthiness of your agency is determined and depends on your bookkeeping, your fractional CFO, your tracking commissions, making sure people are being paid. That is the health of your agency.
I love it. I love it. Well, if people want to reach out to y'all at Agency Point, right? How can they do that? How can they maybe engage your services? How can they ask questions? How can they maybe connect with y'all?
No problem. They can reach out to us by going to our website, which is myagencypoint.com. They can see everything about us and submit a contact form. They can call us at 909-294-7372 or email us at info@pfsonline.com.
I love it. I love it. Any last words out there to the people who might want to be able to really dig into getting to know their numbers and their commissions and rocking the world and making the world safe for democracy? That's my biggest thing, making the world safe for democracy. So what are any last words that you guys have for all of our listeners out there?
Don't be shy.
I would say
It's
the same
okay.
thing. I would say, if this has been on your mind, reach out and find out. You might be shocked at how it could change what you do inside your agency and what kind of impact it would make. You're right. It is a hole in our industry. So if it's ever been something you're thinking about, it doesn't hurt to figure it out and reach out and ask questions and see if it's right for you.
I love it. I love it. Well, everybody, this is another amazing episode of the Power Women in Insurance podcast. Join us every single Wednesday as we have amazing guests on, help you to be able to find your mojo in the industry, helping you to be able to accelerate your career and helping you to find that space where you know that you can make an impact for yourself, for your family, and for others in the industry. Join us every single week. We're on Google Podcasts, Apple iTunes, Spotify, all the places. And my name again is Teresa Kitchens, your host, and I am thankful that you have come and joined us today. And hopefully you've gotten a lot out of this podcast. And hopefully tomorrow we're all going to be better than we were today. Everybody, have a great week.